have a quote from Igor Stravinsky that I really like. It says, "My freedom consists in my moving about within the narrow frame that I have assigned myself for each one of my undertakings. The more constraints one imposes, the more one frees oneself from the chains that shackle the spirit." So for this exhibition, I've limited myself to 3 simple polygons. I'm using an equilateral triangle, a square, and a regular hexagon. And that's both for the ceramic wall sculpture and for double column. In many ways, you will look through the sculpture rather than at it, and the shapes suggest these larger volumes. In terms of influences, I have long looked at architecture and painting as source material. I've been particularly influenced by artists and designers who like clean, simple shapes and more of a modernist clarity to their work. 3 painters in particular have been really influential, and that would be Bridget Riley, Frank Stella, and Saul LeWitt. At some point, I began thinking about proposing a piece for the Mann Atrium, and one of the main reasons is that I feel very lucky that we live in a community with a museum that is so engaged with and supportive of the local and regional artists. I knew that if I put together a solid proposal, they would give it serious consideration whether it went forward or not. So it allowed me to push beyond what I've done before and try something new, and that was really exciting. I took almost 6 months to develop my proposal. I started first with drawings and then with models. Originally, I anticipated that it would be a ceramic piece because all of the projects that I've done have always been ceramics, but through the drawings and then through the models, I started to realize that that might not be the best material, mostly because of the 2 properties of ceramics, that it's brittle and it's fragile, and in using that scale, the sculpture is going to be over 25 feet tall, 7 feet wide, 3.5 feet deep. It just seemed like I was introducing an element that was going to be very difficult to work with. So I switched to my first non-clay project, which is this aluminum tubing. It's also the first time I've tried a suspended sculpture. Up to this point, pretty much all of the work I've done has been wall-based. So that was a new element. And then the scale. I've been thinking about scale for some time with my ceramic wall pieces, but not to this level. So I feel really lucky that I've gotten to try these new things out. At the same time that double column is in the large atrium at the Missoula Art Museum, I will have another piece, a ceramic wall sculpture, hanging in the adjacent gallery, and that's the piece that I'm working on today. It's from a series titled Crystallography that I've been working on since 2012, and all of the pieces in this series are made up of these 12-inch long ceramic canes that are trapezoidal in cross section, and they're combined into a network of geometric shapes. I'm using slip rather than a solid clay, which means it's a liquid clay, but it's a deflocculated clay as well. So I've added a deflocculant which chemically charges the particles and makes them repel one another. So there's less water in it than it would typically take to make it as fluid as it is, but because those particles are chemically charged to repel one another, they slide more like a liquid. And I'll pour it into my molds. So I make a model of the shape that I want, and then I pour that model in plaster using as many plaster parts as I need for it to release with no undercuts. The form I'm working on for this show is really simple. It's these long trapezoidal canes or sticks, and then I have 4 holes that come off the top side, and those are how I fill the piece. So I have little funnels that fit right into the holes, and I'll pour the slip into the funnels. It'll fill up. It will sit in the molds for about 40 minutes before I dump it out and drain it, which we'll see. And then I let it firm up in there, so I'm left with a shell rather than having a solid casting. It's a shell. It's very consistent. So this process is an industrial process that they use to make toilets and any of the commercial mugs or ceramic things that you have in your daily life are made this way because it allows you to repeat something very consistently. So let me get my drill and we'll mix this up. And I'll get some plastic that comes off into my slip or dog hair. I sieve it. It flows through on its own, but sometimes helps to just rub it through. So I sometimes say that I'm not really a clay artist because first of all, I'm using slip. I almost never touch real solid clay, and then I always wear my gloves because I don't like my hands to dry out. So it's kind of, yeah, I'm not as tactile as many. I have these all set up and ready to pour. They have the funnels in, and I like to put it up, one side up on a little wooden stick just so that it flows throughout that long opening. And you have to have the 2 holes because if there's no way for that air to escape when you pour it in, it wouldn't necessarily fill the entire cavity. So one for pouring in and one for the air to escape, which works really well for me in terms of my hanging. I use those 2 pour holes as my hanging mechanism on the wall. So now those will sit, and what happens is that the plaster is an absorbent material, so it soaks the moisture out of that liquid clay, the slip, and as it sucks the moisture out, it forms a wall of solid clay, and that wall gets thicker the longer you leave it in the mold. So at about 40 minutes in the mold, I have about this thickness of wall, and at that point I'll drain the excess slip out and it'll leave me with just that solid wall. When they come out of the mold, they actually have an end on them, and then I cut that end so that you can see the trapezoidal shape. So this is a nice one to see inside of, and you can see actually how that skin has built up on the side wall there. So when I dump it, and then you can see how you're left with just the shell. So it will continue to drain a little while longer. And then that will come out like this. And then I will clean it up and glaze it, and you'll end up with a cup, something like this. These are heavier. The plaster is shockingly heavy to carry around with the liquid clay inside. This is a drawing for the show. And then next to it I have kind of a funny photograph of my daughter. I have twins who are 5 years old, and so we spent a lot of time at the playground, and across the street from our house is this climbing structure that is all geometric shapes. And when I started to think about the piece for Ma'am, I was really attracted to the way you look through all of the shapes in this climbing gym, and their simplicity by being layered, all these layers, becomes really complex. You know, it's really interesting and it's kind of hard to figure out. So. See if it will release or not. It stays sticky until it's, oh, there. And on the plaster, I try to use these rubber tools instead of metal, since the metal can scratch and damage the mold. So I want the holes on the back side of the pieces to all be very consistent. They have to be big enough that a nail or screw head slots in there really easily, but I also want them to have a little bit of a flange that nail or screw is going to be able to catch on either side, so they can't be too large. So I have to trim these up following the line from the funnel, and then I use my little hole cutter to just really clean that shape up. And I'll clean them up more when they get to leather hard, which is firm but not completely dry. So these will still be in here for a while longer. After I trim the holes, I'll put this top piece back over and flip them upside down. And once they start to dry and shrink just enough, then they'll naturally fall out and I'll be able to take them completely out of the mold. So after I trim the holes, flip this back over, and then I'll leave it here for another hour or so until they're ready to fall out, and I'll do the rest of the cleaning up after that. Yeah. Getting used to using this tool, and then also because being in this squatted over position all of the time is pretty tiring on your body, so I'm kind of doing half days in here. So right now I'm just crimping these cables into place. So you have the cable, bend it over, thread the cable through twice, folding it over, and then threading it through this, and then crimping it down into place, securing it. And I have to make sure that all of these interlock with each other so that the tension is distributed evenly throughout the piece. And they come together in groups of 4 and groups of 6, and then at the tighter joints out here at the corner you have 7 of them coming together, so that's when it gets a little tighter. And it helps a lot to build it at ground level, because then I don't have hanging elements and like the weight of the tubes pulling down on the cable. So as much as possible I'm trying to build it at the ground level and then lift it up to the next part of the sculpture. So I thread that in, I had to pinch to hold it in the right place, and then this crimps it down. It's called a hand swedger. You give it 3 crimps each time. It's been a long process, so just developing the model alone, I spent, between 4 and 6 months on the model, and I went through a couple of different phases with it and trying to figure out how the connecting points were coming together. That changed quite a few times. I spent since the middle of July working on getting all of the metal cut and finishing the edges, getting it powder coated, which some of that was me personally doing it, and some of it was me hiring out the work, like the powder coating, finding out how to get the right rubber stoppers. I mean, it's all of these funny little things that end up taking a lot of time that are separate from the actual construction. Building the piece is it's going pretty quickly, actually. If you look at the sculpture over here, the model, it's a series of interlocking spheres or globes. So I'm calling, even though this isn't really a sphere, that's what I'm calling it. And it links up in this chain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 of those spheres. And I can get a single sphere constructed at this full scale in about 3-4 hours of working. And I'm calling it double column because it's 2 columns of the interlinking spheres that are connected there. There's the square, triangle, and a hexagon. And those are the only 3 shapes that are used in this. When I was developing the idea, there's some of the playground equipment that you see, like the climbing things, are these geometric shapes that are put together, and then when you look back through it, the simple shapes become complex because you see all of these layers looking back through the space. If you look at Buckminster Fuller, some of his designs, which are similar to the like 1970s climbing domes that you would have gotten with all of the triangles. So that was kind of the effect that I was going for, where I want to use really simple elements and a really clean design that still has complexity built into it. So I like that contrast, that there's the openness inside that I think of as like the breadth of the piece, that even though there's a lot of lines moving around, you still have that open space, and that even though it's pretty simple, there's a complexity too. I'm going to lift this piece up a little bit. It's on a hook here that raises and lowers, so I'm getting ready for the next level. So now I can start adding more of the tubes, and each time I reference my model for what color I'm on. The rubber stopper on this side, and then pop this other one in. Hammer it into place. And it's the same process of threading a little crimp on there. So this is the color gradation. So right now I'm on my 4th and 5th colors down. I'm moving between those 2 until it gets down to that pure white at the bottom. I figure this is good for my brain, right? Like doing puzzles is good for your brain. This is kind of like a giant puzzle. Oh, and you know what else I should do is I need to lift this up. And the rubber stoppers are important just for keeping the cable right in the center of each of these tubes so that they don't all hang from the top edge. I'm really lucky to get to use this space. I'm at Broadway Splicing, and they have just been really generous to share the space with me, especially because they have a lift that can raise and lower, so that as I'm working on the piece, I hadn't realized that was going to be important in putting it together, but it's been really helpful. I needed a studio with high ceilings to work in for this project. I don't have a studio with high ceilings, so this is a great place to get to work. I'm going to cut some of this cable over here to the lengths that I need. So I have this, just marked out so I can have the exact measurements. And again, it always helps me to brace the tool against something because these are just a little stiff to use. 206 tubes or sections to this piece. At first I was winging it a little on where I bent the cable to make my loops at the end, but then I determined that I needed some way of keeping them consistent, so I just mark each end to show me where I'll do that bend and where it should meet up here. You know, where more of them come together, and these parts that cut in a little are always harder to thread through. The first day I got home from doing this, my fingers were so sore from shoving this cable in.
Somebody want to roll the card on that?
Okay, well, I would hook up your 6 points.
So that's not a tumor, it's muscle. How you do it?
Yeah. Little contractor. Okay, so when this lifts up,
Cats are just like lazy.
this is what we're attaching the top on there, and this slides up and back. This is what is totally removed when we get up there.
A little longer than the other ones, right?
No, it'll be.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get it up just a little bit, and then I'm going to put in some of the braces, and we'll start unwrapping.
Let's just get it taut and see how we look.
And can we do it like a little bit more than taut too after?
Yeah,
Okay.
tell us when to stop, but maybe.
Yep, keep going up. Okay.
Let's get everything taut.
You're hooked up, yeah. Okay, we can go up just a tiny bit more, and then we'll actually.
And I want to do on this.
So let's go just a little bit higher. Okay, then we'll pause here. If anybody ties off and does want to come down, it's going to take a little bit to get all of this. I mean, if anyone wants to help unwrap them. The other thing when we get the padding off is if we can just give everything a quick wipe down, it's going to be a really dirty space.
You know, it just looks really cumbersome and stuff. I never saw that.
So as we go up, if you can think about keeping this top triangle sort of parallel to the ground, yeah. And then that's about good. I'm going to need us to stop again for me to add the braces in here.
Yeah,
just a little.
A little harder.
There you. That's good.
I love to use it.
What was that?
The one we saw.
Okay.
That one is right.
There we go.
Hoisting?
Hoisting? Yes. Pause.
Slow. Stop, so we raise it up. And they were like,
Huh.
Because I see a brace in there.
No, there's no brace in that one.
Well, what's that metal thing going across? Vertical point. Vertical. That might be look fine.
Okay, just be
Ed, are
careful,
you free
Steve
yet?
and John here, because that's getting so much higher, it's gonna mess up the braces.
Okay. Yeah, it's getting heavy, man. I don't like the stretch on this.
Let's go a little higher before you add the braces.
Okay, you can go another 2 feet maybe.
Oh,
Okay, stop.
oh man. Okay, hold on. Brandon, you're
And I bled all over it. Oh no! I got cut on the cables.
This center one, I'm worried about the end one. We could put a lock on the back. Put a lock in.
ready, lads?
Give them
Is everyone ready for the pole? 1, 2, 3. Top one.
Higher?
A little bit higher. Okay, right about there, we're gonna stop.
off again. You can go up.
Go up another foot. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I don't. Hold on.
Ted's close. If you get one out there, you can get Ted.
If you want to go up, go ahead. I'm ready.
How far are we going? Oh, no.
You're only going to go a couple of feet.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, pause. You know, like after that, I won't have to put anything else in. This is our last stop.
Everyone.
1, 2, 3.
Am I over?
I'm at the end of mine.
I can't go any
At the
higher.
end of your rope.
We're all at the end of our rope.
Okay, Brandon, you gotta hold that right there, man.
Okay.
Can you hoist yours up over there and get it on, or no?
Yeah, I can do that.
You need to walk it back.
Pull it taut.
Can you pull it over now?
We try.
1, 2, 3. How are we going?
Keep coming.
Pull that too, John. Everybody pull up.
There.
We're over.
There you go. See, that's the problem.
You're getting really close. Hold on a minute.
Hey, John, I can't go anymore.
Okay, just don't worry about it.
We're on.
Got it. We're all in.
Tighten it.
We only have 2 down here.
Yep, we got 2 done.
Keep going.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, problem here.
Okay, whoa. Yeah.
All right, hey, everybody focus a minute. We're all going to have to go up a little bit. Yeah, the one side of the column is pretty level and the other side is low, so.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Let's see where you are.
Man, you're close now. You are really close. That is a winner. I've seen a winner.
Yay.
You're there.
I am not there. I'm here.
Got it.
It's on.
Got it. Woo.
So, Steve, something slid.
Yeah.
It's okay,
he
don't
knows.
worry about it.
We can pull that up. We have magnets.
Yeah.
A little more. Don.
Show you a cookie.
Thanks.
Maybe we better not leave it at this height.
Okay.
Everyone's caught your last moment.
You see something all the way up at the top, right? They climb.
Now I have pretty long PVC.
That you're thinking we can catch them with?
Well, I'm thinking that you could like adjust some of the positioning of some of this with that plastic.
Okay.
They're like,
If we could rig some way to get a little hook on the end too,
Yeah.
you know, I
Can
don't
figure
know what.
something out.
I kept thinking of those pool things, you know, that they have the long handle and they have the little hook at the end, but we'll, yeah. It held it.
I've got a really long extension pole.
The space is attractive for a number of reasons. First of all, there's all of the natural light. So when you enter MAM, the first thing you see is that grand atrium there, which soars 40 feet high, and it has the skylight from above that filters down all of the light. And then below you have the windows with the front door that bring the light from below. And then as you walk up to the different levels of the museum, you get to view the sculpture from those various points as well. So that was something that was attractive about the space. The intent is to envelop the viewer in an experience that gradually unfolds over this large space. In a lot of ways, the ceramic piece acts as a blueprint for the larger three-dimensional double column. Double column and the wall piece use these geometric shapes in a way that's very similar to some of the architectural screens and windows that are found in Asian and Islamic architecture. It also references some of the geodesic designs by Buckminster Fuller, who was an American architect and visionary. With both pieces, I'm using the parameter of a set unit of a predetermined length. In the case of the wall piece, it's this trapezoidal shaped cane, and in terms of double column, it is the 20-inch long aluminum tube that is repeated. I use a single repeated element that's joined together in a way that allows for openness or breadth, but still encompasses an entire area. And engages that space through these very spare means. So that's the similarity that links both double column and the wall work. Throughout the project, I've run into a series of problems, like one after another. There's all sorts of structural and engineering concerns that I couldn't have anticipated or foreseen. And not only has the Missoula Art Museum been supportive, but there's been a number of individuals and businesses who have provided their expertise and feedback in a way that has been very helpful. Joe Bernier was a local architect. He's now based out of Anchorage, Alaska, and I feel endlessly grateful to him right from the beginning. He has provided a sounding board kind of where I could bounce ideas off of him, and he always allowed me to feel confident that I could come up with a solution. Broadway Splicing, which is a rigging company here in town, has offered me space in their warehouse for building double column, and without that space I'm not exactly sure how I would have put the piece together. In addition, Justin, who works there, has been very helpful. Logan Photography has been documenting the process on almost a weekly basis since I started the construction of double column, and Logan Castor Parson is just a fantastic photographer. The Montana Arts Council has given me a grant that will allow us to do an exhibition catalog, and the Paul Allen Family Foundation has also generously provided funding for the exhibition. So I'm pretty lucky.
And it's your first large piece?
It is my first large piece, yeah. So it came together.
Uh-huh.
It was fun.
You're happy with it?
I am pretty happy with it, yeah. Nice to see you.